Hi guys, another raw therapy video today. Yes, hopefully it's not going to be anywhere near as long as the previous one, yes, because I don't want you falling asleep. And we're going to stick with the subject of noise reduction, but I know wavelets is still a little bit for some of you. So what I'm going to do is a nice, simple noise reduction under the details tab process for you today on this little cutie pie harvest mouse. And we've got him here. He's imported straight from the raw file, and or straight from the camera I should say. No adjustments made to it whatsoever apart from the application of the mybase.pp3 profile, which, as we all know, if you've built it yourself, all it does is remove chromatic aberration and defringing. So, and put it in the ProPhoto RGB output colour mode. So, yeah, what can I say? We're looking at the image unprocessed, and now we're looking at it, well, we will do in a minute, we'll look at it processed. Right, now then, let me switch back to the unprocessed version and show you the problem. The problem is noise. So if I come into the image at 300% and I find where I need to be, which is sort of about there. So now you can see the image in the background, and as you can see from the thumbnail over here, this grey background is quite noisy, and the level of noise in it is just a little bit above what I find acceptable under normal circumstances. But this grey background is a huge expansive image, and it's not broken up at all apart from obviously where the mouse and the bracken stem are, and because they are higher frequency detail and therefore higher contrast, you don't actually see the noise quite so much. But this level of noise does need to be addressed, and of course with this simple process, if I click there we go, we have addressed it, and we're not creating much in the way of artifacting over these fine whiskers. And don't forget, we are at 300% magnification. So if I come out to a fit to screen view now, you can easily see just how overpowering this grey background is. Now, yeah, with a little bit of a crop, it'd make quite a nice print, whether you'd print it very big or not. But there's lots of images that you can take where you will have some sort of rather flat, broad expanse of bokeh in the background, which obviously shows your noise up an awful lot more. Yes, we can get rid of it to a degree in wavelets, which we've already seen on how many videos now? But I did do one video quite a while ago on using noise reduction under the details tab, and it's this. And all we did was use a 2-point curve, which was a modification pretty much of the standard curve that is applied fundamentally when you turn this module on. Now what I want to do with you today is to show you how to create these multi-point curves to sort of suit your image. Now let me just say right from the get-go that this isn't no one noise reduction method inside of raw therapy is a blanket panacea. Noise reduction is quite a complex thing, and we can distribute noise reduction or variable noise reduction based on detail levels inside of wavelets, which is what you've seen before, and we can also distribute it on in terms of lab value or how dark or light certain areas are, and we can make lighter areas or darker areas have more noise reduction than their opposites. So there we go, and that is what we're going to do today. But before we get started, if you enjoyed this video, watch it to the end, for Christ's sake, and give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below if you feel inclined. Click the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Click the ringety-tingety bell to get a notification of next time I put a video up. And if you'd like to help support me and the channel, then head off over to my Patreon page, where you can join up for a small monthly fee, and you can get access to lots of exclusive content. Plus, you'll be able to download all the demonstration raw files that I use in all of my videos. Alrighty, so let's get on. And first of all, I just want to discuss what needs to be done to this image. Not that I already haven't done that. And also we need to set the image up. So we're going to come back to this mybase.pp3 file. And so this is it, pretty much out the camera. And the first thing I'm going to do is to blow the image up to sort of 300-400%. And let's scoot across to where we can see a little bit of subject matter, and of course we can see the noise. Let's go up to a higher magnification, and you can see, as we saw in last week's video and other videos before, we can see where the offending noise is. It's got sort of a regular pattern to it, and that is because of the Amaze demosaicing algorithm. Not really good if you've got noise in your image. No. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to RCD plus VNG4, and now you can see the nature of the noise has changed completely. It's become more blotchy, more even toned, and a lot more random. It hasn't got any semblance of regular pattern to it. And for noise control, that is essential. And it's not something you've got control of over in the likes of Lightroom. So, if I just lift up a little bit, because I saw some there, can you see like that dark spot there? And they dotted around all over the place, actually. And so what we're going to do is, that's pepper noise. From Salt and Pepper? Yes. So what we're going to do is just add default input noise reduction, or impulse noise reduction I should say, and that's got rid of the dark speckles. And so you can think of them as demosaicing artifacts, but they're not really. But anyway, there you go, we've got rid of them. Now then, what's the next thing I want to do? I want to work in the details panel, and lo and behold, we're already here. So this is going to seem quite strange to you, this is. If I pull up the colour picker tool, and I have it in sort of 16 by 16, if I look at this noise and then read the average lab value over here, you can see it's in the low 20s, 20, 21, 22. And if we come out to a somewhat wider view, see if I go up there, it's 23.9. If I come down here, it's 22. If I go over here, it's 22.6. So, wouldn't it be really, really good if I could denoise from 0 to sort of, 22, 22, 21, 23. It'd be really, really good if I could denoise from 0 to there and then not denoise any further. So we can do that simply by, I'm just going to get rid of the colour picker tool and get the hand tool again, come back to the details panel, and all I'm going to do is, at the minute we've got no noise reduction on because it's set to slider and the slider value is 0. If I change that to curve, now you can see I've got a little bit of noise reduction, and I've got this distribution curve here which is distributing more noise reduction in the darks than it is in the midtones and highlights, because that's what this grey slider is here. Shadows and blacks, very, very darks, midtones, highlights. Easy. So what we're doing now is we're distributing noise based on L star value from lab. Alrighty. Now, you can sort of work by guesswork on this scale. And I do wish they'd do something about this, but it sort of doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if we just tap on the Enable Addition of Node In-Out Values button, yeah, we get this scale. Now, this scale, as you can see, it's like 0.56. Well, that I think, or it seems to, equate to Lab 5. Yeah, sort of. And this value here represents how far along the curve it is. In other words, what tones are covered by this point. And the height is the level of noise reduction. So, what I fundamentally want to do is I want to add noise reduction sort of up to a level of, let's say, 23 lab, which on this left-hand scale down here looks as if it is actually 0.23. So let's just leave it at 0.248. So in other words, I think that seems to equate to lab 24.8. Now then, am I getting enough noise reduction in this background at 300% magnification? Let's take the level up. Okay, maybe move it to lab 25, lab 26. Bear in mind I'm at 300%. I don't think that looks too bad. Now, I'm going to do something quite strange here. My midtones and highlights I'm going to drop to 0. You can now see that this button here, or this scale here, when I click on that button, its value in this window is 0. So I've actually turned off the noise reduction in the midtones and highlights. I'm also going to, because if I come back up to the mouse, let's just go and see what we've done so far. Switch from curve to slider. So now I've got all my noise back. But watch the detail in the mouse, especially round the eye. Slider, back to curve again. We are getting a certain amount of noise reduction happening on the eye. And I don't really want that. Go back to slider again. See how much crisper the eye and the detail in the harvest mouse appear to be. So I'm going to come back to curve again, and I'm just going to remove noise reduction from a lot of these sort of middle greys as well. Let's go and switch from curve to slider to turn this noise reduction off. Things are looking a-okay, but you'll notice this eye is still going soft. This eye, if we sort of hover over it with the cursor and look at the lab value, you can see the lab is sort of 8, 10. I know we've got this highlight reflected here, but the very, very blacks. Do I want noise reduction in there? And I've got some noticeable darks in the detail as well. And what I'm thinking about doing is dotting another curve on there, moving to the left and dragging it down. So we've got very little in the way of noise reduction. And do you see things sort of just sharpen up a little bit then? Switch from curve back to slider to turn the noise reduction off. Look at the noise in the background. Don't forget we haven't got any sharpening applied, but how sharp the detail is in the mouse, and the mouse is lit with flash. So fundamentally, the mouse is very, very well lit. So it won't have such a prevalence of noise in it as the background does, because the background didn't receive any extra light from the flash. So switch back to curve again, and pretty much we've done a really good job. Let's just touch across because I just want to check the details of these whiskers with this noise reduction applied. And let's just turn the noise reduction off again just to check. Have we got more whisker detail here without the noise reduction than we have with it? We've not got much in the way of artifacting around those whiskers, but I just think I'm just going to pull this curve, or this point of this curve, slightly more to the left, rather like that. Now let's go and check again. Noise reduction off, noise reduction on. Let's check the mouse because we can see the eye and the face, the muzzle. Noise reduction off, noise reduction on. Not very much in the way of changes to the face. So instead of having a 2-point curve with a sort of nice flowing bezier between them for noise reduction, we've now got this quite blocky curve. But because we've used our lab values to sort of tie down what L star value the noise in the background was lying between, we've managed to, if you like, hone in on the range of that background noise in terms of L star value. And so we've applied noise reduction there, but we're not applying it anywhere else. So we're not applying it from sort of lab 5 downwards. So the blacks in the eye are not being affected. And the detail in the actual eyelids are at sort of 26, 27 lab. And of course, we're at 24, 25 lab here. So 26, 27 lies somewhat to the right of there, and so it's getting no noise reduction. Let's go and add a few finishing touches to this. Let's just close the noise reduction window so we don't risk moving the curve with our sticky cursor that you know I've got and played with on this machine. All I'm going to do now is come along to the actual mouse and we're going to apply. Now I'm not going to apply capture sharpening, just for a change. I'm just going to apply unsharp mask sharpening. So let's turn it off, turn it back on. I want to restrict it a bit because I really don't want to sharpen the very bright tones in the image, because highlights never really need sharpening. And where they're a little bit subtle over here in the whiskers, if I apply too much sharpening up there in those tones, I'll start getting sharpening halos and artifacts on the whiskers. So the first thing I'm going to do with sharpening turned on, I'm just going to remove it from the very, very dark areas. So that would constitute the blacks in the eyeball. Yeah, I'm going to move it or remove it from the brighter end of the highlights. I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm going to move this anchor point a little bit further to the right so that my sharpening is only being applied gradually from 86. These are other odd values. These values run all the way up to 2000 from 0. And it's something that I really think needs to be sorted out inside of Raw Therapee, because, it'd be nice if you could relate these values to something. You can actually. You can relate them to lab values loosely by sort of dividing by 20. I think it'd be 20. Yeah, about that. 2000 becomes 100. Yeah, 20. But either or, it'd be nice if they'd got a grayscale value in this slider behind here. That indeed would help people. But anyway, let's just turn the sharpening off and turn the sharpening back on. Off, on. I'm actually going to turn the radius up a little bit from 50 to I'll probably go up to sort of 55, 50, what am I talking about? 0.5, which is the default, up to about 0.55. I might take the amount up ever so slightly, from its default 200 to about 230. Turn the sharpening off, turn it on again. Just starting to generate a few artifacts. So I think first thing I'm going to do is hold the shift key down, click on this upper point and just make the sharpening bleed off just a little bit more, and then move it away from the darks a bit more, move it away from the highlights a bit more, sharpening off, sharpening on. We'll go to the contrast mask for the sharpening and just come to the threshold slider, and I just think I'll move it along to probably around about 30. And this blur radius, areas that are black just on their boundaries, it sort of adds a little bit of Gaussian blur, bit like we do in Photoshop when we are trying to blend edges together. So we'll turn the contrast mask off. How's this looking now? Sharpening on, sharpening off, sharpening on, sharpening off. Quite pleased with that. It's only subtle, which is what I wanted. Might just push it back there and there. Now I've modified the actual mask itself and turn it on again. Yeah, that I think will do. So I'm going to come out to a one-to-one view now, and I think it looks really good, and we've got rid of all of that noise in that background. So if we were to do a print, yes, in this particular instance, that flat grey area might be a little bit overpowering, but it wouldn't have noise in it. So that'd be a good thing. Let's just go and finish the little darling off. And I'm just going to come over to the HSV equaliser, put the saturation curve or equaliser. We'll turn up the saturation of yellow, turn up the saturation of greens a bit, turn up the saturation of reds. So we've got reds, yellows, so that makes orange, which is fundamentally the colour of the mouse, yeah, and the greens. So we've got yellow greens, which are in the bracken, and all I'm going to do is just click copy to copy that curve, and I'm going to come over to the value, which don't forget is sort of lightness, and I'm just going to paste that curve, and it just lights the image up. You don't always have to copy and paste the curve, because sometimes you'll find you don't need the same adjustments in brightness or lightness in V as you do in S or saturation. So fundamentally, I'm really pleased with that image. Now, one or two people have mentioned Topaz Denoise to me while I've been doing these denoise in raw therapy jobs, and I actually do have Topaz Denoise, as you may or may not know. And Topaz Denoise, I have mixed feelings about. I like it if I'm in a hurry and I need to do a speedy workflow with. So I've got, say, 500 or 1,000 raw files that I've got to process quickly and get them out to a client for whatever reason. I might be tempted to actually batch them through Topaz Denoise just to get them out there. But if I click open and I go and open this same raw file, because I see a lot of demonstrations of Topaz Denoise, and as I said, I do like it in certain cases, and there's a link in the description below. If you click that, if you've not got it, you can go and buy it, and I get a little tiny percentage. Just helps keep the channel going, because doing these videos does cost money, it really does. Now, I've got this same raw file opened here in Topaz Denoise, and ostensibly you think it's done a very good job, and a lot of people would be immensely happy with it. You'll notice, again, I reiterate, I've opened a raw file directly into it, and I prefer to open a raw file directly into it and then export the worked up raw file as a DNG, and then maybe finish that DNG in Lightroom. Can't work the DNGs out of this inside of raw Therapee because I don't think they're proper DNGs. I do not know, right? I do not know, but I suspect they're actually something rather akin to a TIFF in a DNG container. Now, if I take this image up to 200% and just let it work up, you can see it's generating sort of zigzag artifacts and black line artifacts through the whiskers. For me, I have a tendency to try and back the noise off and the sharpening because quite often I find it a little bit on the aggressive side. It's alright, but if I come back to raw Therapee, I actually prefer the raw Therapee rendering. There it is at 200%. It's not over sharpened, whereas the Topaz Denoise one is a little bit over sharp. It's cranked up the saturation a little bit, which is not something I like. But overall, for a speedy workflow, this is quite good. And the one thing you can say about raw Therapee, even though what I've done here is fairly quick and would really and truly in real life, without all the talking and explaining, only take me 90 seconds, it's not exactly one button does it all, is it? So, as I said, for a speedy workflow, it's quite handy to have Topaz Denoise, if you don't mind spending the fee for it. And I will actually be doing a video on Topaz Denoise a little bit later on and showing you where it does work well and also where it doesn't. Alright, but anyway, if you haven't got it and you want it, go click the link below and have a look and have a play. On the whole, it's worth having, but it won't do as good a job as you can do in raw Therapee. Plus the fact we've got another method of noise reduction distribution coming in the death build at the minute. I asked him for it on Monday. Is there any chance we can have noise reduction distributed on contrast? Oh yeah, we can do that, they said. And they're working on it now, so woohoo! So anyway, there you go, guys and gals. Little Harvest Mouse looks quite cute, I think, and we actually started out with that file, which, as we know, had got a noisy background in it. And now, as if by magic, that background is no longer noisy, and we've got a much cleaner image. Okay, guys and gals, that's it. Hope you got something useful out of that video. If you did, don't forget, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, click the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, and until the next time, see ya.